Always envied, though never respected. The Spy, page 155. Coelho's book is not a history book, and in all honesty, we'll be pointing out quite a few areas of concern in the narrative. But historical fiction carries an important place in the study of history, as long as it's good historic fiction. Dry tomes full of dates and obscure names are excellent ways to keep facts straight. But what they do not do is relay the feeling of history. They're facts, they're not stories. And the human mind needs stories to truly understand. Today, we'll be going over pages 154 to 171. And as we say every season, there will be spoilers. We are discussing a book as if we have all read it together, and it's about a historic event that is well known. My not unreasonable assumption is that everyone knows who killed Mr. Body in which room of the mansion using which household implement in the Mata Hari story. Side note, it's almost never the candlestick. In our penultimate reading of The Spy, the lawyer Clinet's letter continues and lays out the evidence, or rather lack of actual hard evidence, and states outright something that we 110 years in the future have always known. Those prosecuting Mata Hari for espionage made up their mind she was guilty long before she was even arrested. She was never going to go free. And even though the last decade and a half of her life had been spent in the company of powerful men who were seemingly enchanted by her, none of them were willing to come forward to her rescue. In the end, Mata Hari was completely and totally alone. The historic problem here is that the situation is most often framed as a cabal of men who were offended that Mata Hari lived her life on her own terms and took lovers as she wished. Vastly simplified, that is absolutely true. But the truth is actually much bigger than that. In 1917, France itself was in crisis. The war on the Western Front was not going well. There were unfathomable bloody casualties and nothing to show for them. More than 1 million French men had been killed in the fighting, and this was before a disastrous offensive that added nearly 200,000 casualties. The offensive had been greatly hyped, and French morale went from determined optimism to abysmal defeatism over the space of less than a month. After the dust settled, beginning on May 3rd, 1917, French soldiers began refusing orders to attack. For the most part, in the beginning, they remained at their posts and did not interrupt into violence against their own command. However, they refused to move forward. They were exhausted. They were demoralized. They were dying at a massive and bloody rate. And they saw nothing to show for it. But soon, demonstrations turned into mutinies, and desertions ticked up at an alarming rate. And all of this was occurring against the shadow of the Russian Revolution, which had begun its march of turmoil in March of 1917. The Tsar had already abdicated, and Russian troops at the front were in absolute turmoil and turning on their officers. The French have always loved a good revolution, and so French leaders felt drastic action was needed to keep that from happening. General Philippe Pétain, who would later become famous for collaborating with Germany in World War II, took charge and began mass arrests and trials of soldiers. Nearly 3,500 courts-martial took place, and almost all of them resulting in guilty verdicts and sentences of hard labor or death. Only 49 death sentences were actually carried out, however. It also helped that American troops were on their way, promising fresh troops more firepower, and a renewed vigor in the stalemated campaigns. But it still took nearly a year for the French army to get back into the game of war. Even though the French government suppressed official news of the mutinies, rumors were still rife, and French morale overall was low. The reason for these problems absolutely could not be mistakes the government itself made. That would just create even more issues with morale. No, a scapegoat needed to be found. There must be someone whose perfidious behavior was killing the bloom of French male youth. A wanton, aging woman who danced naked in front of crowds, made a habit of lying about nearly everything, slept with thousands of men, and had constant issues with money despite earning power on par with the upper echelons of society, was the perfect fall guy. French losses had to be someone else's fault, and it became the fault of Mata Hari. And the men who surrounded her were perfectly chosen to make sure she bore the blame. We've already discussed Georges Ladoux, whose drive to remain in charge of the 10e Bureau and make French intelligence a powerhouse saw convicting Mata Hari as the path to glory. Her main interrogator, too, a man named Pierre Bouchardon, also had skin in the game of convicting the famous dancing siren. One strong reason was that his wife had recently been uncovered having an affair, and Bouchardon was anxious to punish women enjoying what he viewed as illicit sex. Bouchardon was convinced of Mata Hari's guilt from the first time he laid eyes on her. His reports of interrogations laced with judgments, such as Mata Hari being much uglier than public reports, and consistently referring to her lack of morals. But the investigation and interrogations were constantly frustrated. Even Bouchardon admitted that there wasn't enough evidence to convict her, until Ladoux brought in something that broke the case wide open, as Bouchardon would later say. Telegrams intercepted by the French, in which the Germans fully implicated Mata Hari as one of their spies. From the first interview, I had the intuition that I was in the presence of a person in the pay of our enemies. From that time, I had but one thought: to unmask her. Pierre Bouchardon. And this is where we'll pick up the next bit of reading for Paulo Coelho's book, The Spy, about the life and death of the infamous Mata Hari. Next week's discussion will be about pages 172 to 186, to the end of the book. And as a reminder, there will be spoilers as we discuss. See you next week at Mata Hari's execution.
What to do